And we should be live. Welcome everyone. We are live from Malahide in County Dublin, Ireland. If any of you were completely new to me, if you've just clicked on this live and you don't know what you're watching, we're going for a live walk in Malahide. We've got about 7 minutes before to start. We're waiting for everyone to connect. Let me know in the chat that you can hear me properly. And if any of you are watching the replay in the next few days or months, so today it's 27th of November 2025. So if it's no longer November 2025 for you, you're probably watching the replay. If you were watching the replay, you could skip the next 6 minutes if you wanted to, if you want to go straight into the live walk. Let me know in the chat that you can hear me properly, because I wasn't too sure about the signal down here. It looks like I'm down to 4G, but hopefully that's good enough. Let me know in the chat. Apologies for moving the timing of the tour. I was meant to go live 45 minutes later, but there's a castle I'm not sure I would have been able to show you a bit later, because it's getting dark very early these days. Hi Tish, I see a message in the chat. Let me know that you can hear me properly. Oh, perfect. Thank you, Tish. Thank you so much. The weather is changing. I thought we were going to be lucky and dodge the rain. I'm not too sure anymore. Let me show you a glimpse of the view. It was bright and sunny a minute ago, and now it's getting much darker. Hi Terry, nice to see you here. So as you can see, I'm waiting for you here with our dearly departed friends. Not gonna venture too far down in the cemetery because the signal was not too good on that side, which is a shame, because on some of the graves you can really see that you are in Ireland, because of the names of course, but also because very often it spells mum and dad, you know, mum, not mum, mum. So that's very Irish. Hi Shaz. Right, you know the drill. I'm going to have to test the microphone. So I'm going to tap it 3 times. Let me know in the chat whether you've heard it properly. You should have heard 3 tapping. And we've got about 5 minutes to go. We're just waiting for everyone to connect. It's probably not going to be as busy as usual today because it's a little bit earlier. So I know for some of you in the US it might be very early. But let's see. And also I've changed the timing last minute. But I kind of had to, because there's a castle I wanted to show you. You've heard it perfect. Thank you very much. There's a castle in the middle of a park, and it's meant to close at 4:45, but it's pitch black at 4:30 these days. And I went through earlier. There's no lighting whatsoever, so there's no way people could still be there in the dark at 4:45. So I had to move the tour a little bit earlier. You've heard 5 taps. Yes, it must be the ghost playing up with you, Shaz. Let's see what time it is. Oops. Right. I think it's 5 minutes to go. Every time I try to see the time, the chat moves for some reason. Weird. 7 a.m. for you, Terry. Yeah. Yeah, that's why I try not to do those tours too early. But it's dark so early these days. It's especially here. I think it's probably even the days are probably even a bit shorter than in London for some reason. Hi Susan, and welcome Herbie. Nice to see you here. We've got a few minutes before to go. We are waiting for everyone to connect. And if any of you clicking on this video or this live, if you don't know what to expect, we'll go for a little live walk around Malahide. So that's what I usually do. I take you for some live stream walks in interesting places, and I tell you some fascinating tales. Or sometimes I take you to fascinating places, and I'll tell you some interesting tales, whichever. Today it's both actually. And let's see how long we've got. Every time I touch it, everything moves. Luckily, I don't have to check the time after the live has started. But I think it's about, I didn't actually see the time, probably about 3 minutes. Let's say 3 minutes. And I'm glad the signal is good, because it was a bit worrying. It seemed a bit slow earlier. Usually to test the signal, what I do is I go on YouTube and I just watch some shorts to see how quickly they load up. And it was a little bit slower, so I was worried, but hopefully the gods of the internet are going to be with us. Have I been drinking Guinness? You know what? I haven't had a single one. I've had baby Guinnesses. I'm not a big fan of Guinness. It's not that I don't like it, but if I can have a pint of ale or an IPA, that's much better. And usually here in Ireland, they've got decent ale as well. Some of them are actually produced by the Guinness company, but yeah. Because when you go to Irish pubs, I went to an Irish pub in Macedonia with Apostolis, my streaming friend. They had no ale whatsoever. All they had was Guinness and lager. And I was like, why is it even an Irish pub? And they're like, oh, because we've got the dark one, meaning the Guinness, but no ale whatsoever. That shouldn't be called an Irish pub, if you ask me. That shouldn't even be called a pub if you've got no ale. Funnily, here they often call the pubs the bars. So it's funny because all across the globe we've got Irish pubs, right? Yet you come here and they call them bars. Yes, Laurie, I had to start the tour a little bit earlier because of a park and a castle being potentially closed or too dark to stream later on. Apologies about that. I'm glad you found us. Hopefully everyone will be able to make it. I felt bad for people on the West Coast. If anyone set up an alarm for 30 minutes later, hope no one is going to miss the beginning, but I kind of had to. Otherwise, we wouldn't have seen the castle at all. Right, let's see what time it is. It might be time. And it is officially time to start. It is 3 p.m. Irish time. Welcome, everyone. Let me flip this camera around and let's go. So I am in a little cemetery, the Yellow Wall Cemetery, and I think it's gonna rain. At least it's not windy earlier, because earlier it rained and it was windy as well. If it's only the rain, that's fine. I can put up with that. When it's rain on wind, it's a different story. Anyway, I started here because there's a very interesting epitaph. Oh, hold on. I got all good, a big B. There's a very interesting epitaph down here. I don't want to step on their grave, but let me get a bit closer. So, pray for the soul of Margaret MacDonald, died in 1924. That's normal until there. Then her sisters, Annie MacDonald, Alice MacDonald, her brothers, Joseph MacDonald, Peter MacDonald, and their 2 servants, James Clark and Mary McCowan. But look at the last line. Who died at La Mancha, Malahide, on or about 31st of March, 1926. What? They all died on the same day? Or about the same day? That's interesting, isn't it? Well, it's raining now. I'm going to have to get the umbrella. Oh, well. Yeah, that's very interesting. 6 people buried together that died on the same day. It's actually because it's the gravesite of the biggest mass murder in Ireland. Well, not including political stuff, of course. Bear with me 1 sec. I'm gonna have to open up the umbrella. Bear with us. Oopsie. There we go. I was hoping to have a dry one, but hey ho. Sorry, it's not properly opened. There we go. Good morning, Barbara, and welcome everyone that just joined. And the wind is back. Right, so the MacDonald family, they were not from here in Malahide. They were from around Galway in the west, and they were a fairly wealthy family. The 4 siblings lived together. They were in their late 40s and 50s. That's quite unusual for the time. None of them was married for some reason. We don't know why. They lived together in a house called La Mancha, that is a little bit further down. The building is no longer here, but I'll show you the site. And they had a couple of servants, Mary and James, as you might have seen, they're buried together, as well as a gardener, Henry. But Henry McCabe did not live on site. He lived in Malahide as well, but not in La Mancha, because he had a big family. He had 9 kids. Now let me cross over. I hope the rain is not gonna last for too long, because it's very windy as well. So Henry one morning arrived, and he's a bit surprised because he sees a lot of smoke coming out of the chimneys, and then he realizes that the smoke is coming out of the windows as well. Now, he does not rush in to try to save his employers. No, he looks at the building. He actually lit up a cigarette and stuff. Then he goes on his way to find a fireman. And on his way, he runs into a neighbor. And sorry, just a bit struggling with the wind. Bear with me. He runs it. He runs into sorry for the umbrella in the frame, but I'm just trying to protect the gimbal. It's not the best view anyway. So he runs into a neighbor, Mrs. O'Reilly, and he says to her, "There's a fire at La Mancha," and they found 6 bodies inside. The 4 siblings, as well as the 2 servants, Mary and James. Now, the problem was, well, at least it's a nice umbrella you're looking at. Hazel gave it to me because I forgot mine in a pub. Anyway, sorry, it's really bad. The bodies were found. The problem was that it was not the fire that killed them. They found the poker with some brain matter on it. They had been brutally killed, and then later on later on doing the autopsy, they it's just right. Let's try to make it through this road. Hopefully the wind will be in a different direction later on, but it's a bit difficult at the moment. Right, so when they did the autopsies later on, they found that they were also poisoned with arsenic. So whoever killed them tried to poison them first, then attack them with a poker, and then try to set the house on fire to cover his dark deeds. Now, the family was very well loved. No one had anything nasty to say about them whatsoever. So that was a little bit, surprising to say the least. And very quickly, Henry McCabe, the gardener, he came under the radar of the authorities because of his behavior. He had, sorry for the umbrella in the frame, but I kind of have to protect the gear. He had been a bit slow at reacting when he saw the fire. He was just spotted staring at the building and having a cigarette and stuff. And he just seemed a bit cold, for such a huge tragedy, really. He did have an alibi. Well, the night before, he had gone into a wake. Very conveniently, some local person had died in Malahide, so he had spent the night at a wake, and he had just left the wake to go back to work in the morning at 7 a.m. when the fire was spotted. But the authorities, when they started looking into the house and everything, they found that the bodies they'd not gone to bed. The beds were not undone, so they would have been killed before bedtime anyway. And eventually they concluded that Clark, the servant, he had been killed 3 days earlier. That's why on the headstone, it said on the 31st of March, because they believed that Clark was killed first. Now, it didn't look very good for McCabe because, the day that he was arrested, he was actually wearing a pair of trousers that belonged to Peter, one of the siblings that were killed. Now you might say, yay, they were nice employers, they might have given him some items of clothing. Yeah, sure, why not? But also, if you had killed someone with a poker, it's quite unlikely that your clothing would be spotless, in terms of blood. So he might have just taken some trousers from the dead people, Who knows? He was eventually convicted, and he was hanged. You could argue that a lot of it was circumstantial, but it did look like the family, the McDonald's, they didn't like to use the banks, and they had a big safe at home. The theory is that Henry, the gardener, might have been caught stealing from the safe, probably by James, the servant that was killed first. And then, to try to cover up his tracks, he might have had to kill everyone else, The money was never recovered. There was nothing in the safe. And also there's a servant that worked for the family years before, and she said they had a lot of jewelry at home. None of that was found. So it might have been a robbery. Now, Henry McCabe was hanged, and I'm sorry, I'm just struggling with the wind. The murder was actually almost, although it's the biggest mass murder in the country, it was it's not that infamous anymore. People have forgotten about it. Even one of his granddaughters, Mary, she didn't know that her grandfather was a mass murderer. What happened is Mary wanted to apply for an Irish passport. Probably after Brexit, you know, there are quite a lot of British people that applied for Irish passport after Brexit, because then because then you can still buy buy a house in Spain and spend your retirement there. So she applied for an Irish passport. All you need to have to get an Irish passport, if you're British, it's or even if you're not British, from anywhere, one of your parents. If one of your parents is born in Ireland, or it could even be your grandparents. So she had to get their death on birth certificates. And when she got Henry's death certificate, she saw he had been hanged. She had no clue. She was very little when that happened. So that's in 1926. But yeah, she had no clue that her own grandfather was a mass murderer. She actually tried to say that he might have been wrongly accused, but at the time of the trial, they didn't know. They only found a few years later. But he had gone down for attempted murder in Watford, in England. He had apparently, he was already working as a gardener, and there was a property that he sometimes worked in. He knocked at the door, the servant opened, and he knew she was alone at home, and he said to her, I want you, and she said, no, you don't want me, and he jumped on her and tried to strangle her. So, you know, he actually had a violent past. So I think he's very much guilty. And actually a few years later, they did find, in one of the gardens he used to work at, they found a bag with a lot of the items that would have belonged to the MacDonald family. So yeah, he's probably 100% guilty. But that was the mass murder of La Mancha. Now, the building La Mancha would have been somewhere down there. It doesn't exist anymore, but it would have been right there. Let me show you a picture. Sorry, it's a bit tricky. There we go. So that's after the fire. You can see the windows are already burned and stuff. So that was the building of La Mancha. Now, let me remove the photo. Sorry, it's a bit tricky to do the photos with the umbrella in hand. Right, let's keep going. Hopefully the rain might stop soon. I see the sun coming through in the distance. That'll be amazing, because we still have a bit of a walk. Sorry about that. Now, we are arriving at the corner of Sword Road. There's a lady that lived on Sword Road. Her name was Mary Sutton. Well, actually, she would have lived in there at the time of the murders, the La Mancha murders. She was a mother of quite a few children. But before to tell you about Mary, I need to tell you about another lady called Jenny Cockell. She didn't live here. She lived in England, in the Midlands. Now let's. I'm just hoping it stops. See, I can see the sun in the distance, because it's a bit difficult to manage at the moment. But I'm not giving up. I came down here especially for this story, so I'm not giving up. Now this is Swords Road. This is where down a few meters down that way, there used to be a little cottage. Actually, I think it's still there. I explored a bit earlier and I did see some ruins. It might still be the ruins of the cottage. I'm not going to show you because I'm not sure it's the right one. But yeah, it might still be there. Now, I think it's getting a bit better. Ooh, that'd be amazing if it just stopped. Not the rain, but the wind. That'll be if one of the above stopped, either the rain or the wind, that'll be brilliant. Anyway, Jenny Cockell, she was born in the 50s in the Midlands. And since she was a little girl, she always remembered having been a mother in Ireland. She wasn't too sure about how many kids she had, between 5 or 8 maybe. She didn't know where, but she used to draw maps of the area in which she lived. Now, it's not dreams, it's not like daydreaming or anything, it's memories she had. From a very young child, she talked about it to her parents and everything. Even her mum had been interviewed and she confirmed. Now, it actually happens a lot. Kids that have memories of being someone else. And usually we brush it off, we're like, oh yeah, they've got a great imagination, we don't really listen to them. But very often kids would talk about being a train pilot or a train conductor, I should say, or whatever. Or they'll talk about their other mum or whatever, but we just don't listen. We think they're kind of role-playing or whatever. There's actually a professor at the University of Virginia, Ian Stevenson. He's been studying those kids for many decades. Actually, he recorded over 300 cases of those kids that were very well documented and where the person actually existed. Now, I'm sure you figured it out by now. We're gonna be talking about reincarnation. Would you believe actually more people on the planet believe in reincarnation than the people that don't? It's interesting because in the West we tend to completely ignore the area. Whenever people mention it, they're a bit cuckoo. But when you think about it, what we believe in, or we as, let's say, Christians or Catholic, it doesn't make any sense anyway. I mean, you can have a baby that was born yesterday and then that dies tomorrow. According to the Catholics, they'll go to heaven forever. What? When us that are alive for 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 60, 70, 100 years, we have time to make mistakes, to hurt people, to be bad, and then we're taking the risk to go to heaven? It's not fair for eternity. It's not fair. You'd better be the baby that dies after a day, he stays innocent and he goes to heaven. So it doesn't make any sense to me anyway, unless we have many lives, who knows. And the rain has stopped. I'm gonna get rid of the umbrella for now. Woohoo! Party time. Right. See, I should have started at 3:45 at the end. I would have avoided that horrible storm. Now, back to Jenny. As a little girl, she didn't quite realize that she was the only one that remembered those past lives. Because today we're going to talk about Mary, but she actually remembered quite a few. It's only when she started to go down to Sunday school. She wasn't raised in a household that was particularly religious, but she did go to Sunday school for a while, and they started to talk about life and death, and that's when she realized that no one else was talking about those memories. No one else remembered, and eventually her mum said, "Oh yeah, it's a belief And she was like, what do you mean it's a belief? I remember. And we're talking about actual memories, you know, like when you try to remember when you were a child. Of course, when we think about memories, like if you try to remember when you are a child, it's quite vague, you know, you don't really remember phone numbers or stuff like that. You often remember the same scene actually over and over again. So it was exactly, the memories presented themselves as exactly the same. So she remembered living in what she believed to be around the 30s, and she was called Mary. She did not have a last name, and she remembered very specific scenes, like being waiting on a jetty. And she didn't know, or she didn't remember what she was waiting for or who she was waiting for, but she remembered being on a jetty with her shawl. And already as a child, she was drawing little maps of the area in which she believed she had lived previously. And at that point, you know, well, she was born in the 50s, but, you know, when she started to dig into the story much more seriously, it was still way before the internet. So when she had her first atlas, she was able to look at Ireland and kind of point her finger towards Malahide. But then she had to go to a bookshop to order a map of Malahide. And it matched pretty much, you know, from the streets, the layout of the streets she would remember. And but that's pretty much all she had at the time. She didn't remember much about her husband. She remembered early memories of him, but not the latest one. And she remembered dying. She remembers precisely the hospital room, the layout of the room and what she could see from the window and all that. And she remembered being very scared about leaving the kids alone. She didn't know why. Was it that the husband for some reason was not going to be able to supply for them? Or she didn't know why, but she was terrified about the idea of leaving them alone. And although she remembered some other little snippets of other lives, this one was the one that was haunting her the most. And eventually she decided to look into it. She decided to go and find this family. And that was a bit of a complicated one, because of course she did not have a last name to go with. And that's when she met someone that offered her to do some regression therapy. And guys, if you don't mind, try to keep the chat active, because I've not had a message for a while. I don't know if oh, perfect, thank you, Laurie. So she decided to go to try regression therapy. So we're talking about hypnosis. And even herself, she was quite mixed about her feeling about the technique. So we're talking about going to an hypnosis that can try to bring you back towards your previous lives. Now, when you do that, I've never done it. I don't think I would want to, because even if I do believe in reincarnation to an extent, when you do hypnosis, very often the memories that come back to you, it's the most traumatic ones, you know. I'm not sure I would want those memories to come back personally. And, oh, thanks, Willow. And, you know, when you do hypnosis, though, it's still you. You are still there. You're still aware of being you. Because sometimes people think that you completely parachuted into a different... for example, I was watching an interview of someone that was asking the doctor, the hypnotherapist, oh, you know, I've read your book and you put so and so under hypnose, and they said, oh, I'm in 350 BC. How can they know it's BC? Because it's BC, you know, they don't know. But of course, in their life, they wouldn't have known it's BC. But as you are going through hypnosis, you're still you. You're still aware of being you, if that makes sense. Anyway, so Jenny went through those sessions, and she was then able to retrieve a few more information. But she says herself, the quality of the information she got, she wasn't 100% sure of everything, because you kind of have to put yourself in a context where part of it could be I don't want to say imaginated, but almost, you don't know if you should trust it as much as you do with a normal memory. Anyway, hold the story there. We're gonna move away from Jenny in a moment because I want to show you Malahide castle. So we'll talk about the castle for yes, Tariq, it's my fault. I moved the tour a little bit earlier because I didn't think I would be able to access the castle in half an hour, because you'll see in half an hour it's gonna start to be very, very dark, and I thought they might close the park. So that's because there's absolutely nowhere to see the castle if you're not right next to it in the park. So it's my fault if the timing was confusing. Sorry about that. Now let's take a look at Malahide Castle, and we'll get back to Jenny Cockell's story in a moment. So this is Malahide Castle. It's a Norman castle. It dates back to the late 12th century. The Normans, they come all the way down here, but it's not like if they really invaded. They came here, they called themselves lords and stuff, they built some castles, but they married local ladies and started to speak Gaelic, and they kind of forgot that they were French, so they completely assimilated. But we still have some of those Norman castles remaining. You can visit the castle. I've not gone inside, but I think it's quite a nice thing to do. And guess what? It is haunted. They have no less than 5 different ghosts. Let me try to put the umbrella down here. The ghosts, well, 4 of them are very precise. One is a bit random. One is probably a monk or a lady with a veil. It varies. The 4 others, somehow people are quite specific about them. The first one is Puck the Jester. Puck was said to be a jester on some kind of a guard at the castle as well, that would have fallen in love with a lady called Lady Eleonora. She was a prisoner at the castle. And good to see you, Cynthia, and everyone. So I just stopped talking for a second. It's just because some staff were there looking at me. I don't know whether, well, it's part of it's a park really, but technically it's castle ground, so I don't have any official permission to be here, so we never know. But they didn't say anything, so we should be all good. Right, let me show you the castle from here. They I think they close at 5, and the park, it said they were closing at 4:45. So I don't know how they could close the castle at 5 when the park closes a bit earlier. But that's why I wanted to move the timing of the tour, because I wanted to make sure we could see that. Otherwise, we would have had to stay on the big boring road. They have those lovely little statues as well, making it even more authentic. Anyway, so we had Lady Maud. She had been married and widowed on the same day. It is said that the gentleman she was marrying, Lord Goldtrim, Right, apologies, I've lost you for a sec. It should be better now. So I was telling you, you've got 5 ghosts. Puck the Jester, Lady Maud, Lord Goldtrim, as well as Miles Corbett. I think it probably cut when I was talking about Miles. Miles was a mate of Oliver Cromwell. You know Oliver Cromwell, when he accused Charles I of treason, he basically confiscated the castle and he gave it to his mate, Miles Corbett. But then when we we brought back Charles II, Miles was beheaded. And it is said that his ghost is still around here. Are we better with signal? Is it back now? Let me know in the chat. According to the app, we're back, but let me know. I'm glad the sun has come back, though. It's much, much prettier with a bit of sun than it was with the rain. Should completely get rid of the umbrella while we're here. I'm guessing you cannot hear me, but let me know in the chat if we're back to... but that might be cutting off the signal. No signal. Okay, thanks for letting me know, Terry. I'm not going to say anything interesting until we go back to the main road, where it should, well, hopefully where it should be a little bit better. Hi, Rebecca. I hope you can hear me. I don't know if you guys can hear me. Let me know when the signal gets better. I'm gonna be rushing down the main road and it should be much better. Oh, you can hear me, says Cynthia. Okay. Can you all hear me? If it's better, we can start talking about Jenny again. I think it might be that big wall there that's cutting off the signal. But who knows? Is it back now? Perfect. Thank you so much, Axie. Right. So let's say bye to the castle and its ghost. Now let's go back to Jenny's story. So Jenny goes to those seances, those hypnosis, and she did get a bit more information. But the thing is, the hypnotherapist, he was doing it for free. He was doing it, he kind of wanted to use her as an experiment at the same time, you know. So he was trying to get a lot of information out of her. And some of them was actually counterproductive. Because what happened is, for example, in one session, he asked her to go back in time until she found herself into a church, in what seemed to be a wedding. So in her regression, she's there in the church. She wasn't sure whether it was her wedding or not. And at that point, the hypnotherapist told her to look into the registry book in the regression, so through the hypnosis. And she looked and she saw a name. It was O'Neill's. So after that session, she was then convinced that she had been Mary O'Neill's, and she started to search and try to find an O'Neill in Ireland, right? So she tried to contact all the local families that were called O'Neill, it's a bit awkward when you send a letter. You know, people usually think it's because of genealogy. You know, you want to find your ancestors and stuff. But when you try to tell them that you're looking into a past life, very often people stop replying. So anyway, she wasted a lot of time looking for an O'Neill, and that didn't lead anywhere. When eventually she decided to give up on that, she had not been sure about that name anyway. She decided to start again and go back to just looking for a family here with a lot of kids and with her first name Mary. At first she didn't have the money to come. When eventually she managed to come for a couple of days, and as she discovered or rediscovered the area, she knew her way around. She went down to the road where she believed she had lived. It was the third road, you know, where we were earlier when the rain stopped. And she tried to locate the cottage, but she couldn't find it. It didn't seem like it was there anymore. But she recognized everything. She recognized the butcher shop. She remembered seeing the butcher shop. She never went in. She didn't have the money for the butchers, but she remembered walking past it. She also remembered the church. And actually, through the hypnosis, she had done a very accurate, after the hypnosis, I should say, she had done a very accurate drawing of a church. So she decided to contact all the churches to see if they could have maybe records, you know, marriage or baptism or whatever it might be. And eventually, as she came in, she found a local gentleman, Mr. Mahoon. I actually saw some graves of the Mahoon family in the cemetery earlier. He was an older guy that had been there at the time, and very, very luckily for Jenny, he remembered the family. So he confirmed that there had been 8 children, and that they indeed lived in a cottage at the very end of Third Road, where we were earlier. But he didn't really know what happened to the family after, or what happened to the kids after the mother had died. Let me show you the castle. It's quite cool what they've done with the tree carving. And so yeah, he said the family might have been split up after the mother had died, and he believed the kids had been given to orphanages. But very importantly, he had a name. It was Mary Sutton, not Mary O'Neill's, Mary Sutton. Let me show you a picture of Mary. This is Mary with one of her daughter, Phyllis. So finally, Jenny had a full name. And at that point, she was convinced it was the right family anyway, because the cottage would have been exactly where she remembered. And now she could start searching again. That was still a huge search. She contacted all the local orphanages and well, some people would have been helpful, but you know, at that point we are in the 80s. You know, even today, if you want to talk about past life, it's really awkward. But imagine in the 80s, you know, in a country that's very Catholic. So it wasn't easy until there was a breakthrough, thanks to a priest. The priest, I think he worked in one of the orphanages that she had contacted. Well, he didn't work in the orphanage, but probably at the chapel or you know, at the charity with the orphanage. And he was able to come here to the church, the St. Sylvester Church, to look for the baptism certificates or register. And he was able to find records of 6 of the kids. 6 of them had been baptized. Sorry, I'm just struggling with the umbrella. I don't know where to put it. I'm going to try to put it in my pocket. Bear with me 1 sec. I'm just going to try to put the umbrella in my pocket. It's a funny one because it's transparent, it's plastic, so it's not actually folding back like a normal umbrella. I'm just going to try to shove it down my pocket. Bear with me. There we go. So he found 6 of the kids. Mary was, she didn't really know the names. She was under the impression she had an older girl called Mary, because Mr. Mahoon, the local resident, did tell her one was called Mary. But Mary would have been born actually before Mary Sutton had moved to Malahide. But 6 of the younger kids, they found their baptism. So you had a little Jeffrey, a little Philomena, That's the one we've seen on the picture. Little Christopher, Francis, Bridget, and a little Elizabeth, a tiny baby. Which is interesting because when Jenny herself was a little girl, she had a little blonde doll that she had called Elizabeth. So now she knew the names of the kids, so she was able to try to trace them. But that was still big work, because it turned up that the kids had been separated after what happened, after Mary died. And eventually she was able to contact Jeffrey's daughter. I call him Jeffrey. I think Jeffrey is the only one that didn't want to be identified. So I think that's actually a fake name she's given him in the book. So Jeffrey didn't want to be involved at the beginning, but his daughter gave Jenny more information. Apparently the boys, they had been able to reconnect, so they were at the time in their 70s. They'd been able to reconnect after 50 years. But the girls, they didn't know where the girls were. They had gone to different orphanages and stuff. So the girls had not reconnected with the boys. And thanks to Jeffrey's daughter, Jenny was able to connect with her older boy, Sonny. Sonny would have been about 13, I think, when she died. So, because he was the oldest, he probably was one of the kids with the most precise memories, really, of his mother and of the situation. And at that point, before to actually meet Sonny, Jenny had contacted the BBC. She had seen a documentary about reincarnation, and she had contacted some journalists that worked with Dr. Ian Stevenson, the one from Virginia. So at that point, the journalists were involved, which is great because they were able to speak to the both of them before they met. So they recorded a lot of information about what Jenny remembered and about what Sonny remembered before they met. Sonny lived in Leeds. He had left Ireland. So when she met the kids, she didn't try to say, "Hey, hello, I'm your mum." That would have been very awkward. She was in her 30s. They were in their 70s. But she just, turned up and told them the truth, that she had memories of being here in Malahide, that she knew the geography of the place, and that she remembered being waiting on the jetty for a boat. She didn't know who she was waiting for, but she was there on the jetty quite regularly, very cold, wearing a shawl and stuff. And Sonny, he actually said to her, "Well, my mum was waiting for me at the jetty," because he used to work as a caddy and on the Gulf, across the water. There's a Gulf, so he used to work there, and he would come back after his day caddying on the Gulf on a little boat. So some of the stories would kind of match, and also they would complete one another, and it is Sonny that told Jenny. Probably the reason why she didn't remember much of the husband is that he was very violent. He was an alcoholic. Jenny remembered that he might have worked with some big wooden beams, maybe somewhere at heights or something. It was correct. He was a scaffolder, but he was an alcoholic. He would be violent with the kids and with Jenny. I mean, with Mary. Thanks, Mary. And he was. That probably was the very reason why Mary was so scared about leaving the kids alone with him. It's because he was violent and he was drinking the money away, Look at those lovely little colorful homes. It's almost like Notting Hill. Malahide is very pretty, actually. I'm glad it's sunny because at least you can see how pretty it is. And this is St. Sylvester Church. So this is the Catholic one. Now, Mary, she kind of remembered being a Catholic. She kind of remembered going to church, like dressing up on a Sunday to go to church, but somehow she did not remember the outside of that church. She remembered the other one. I'll show you in a moment. But it is in this one here, the Catholic one, that they found the birth certificates of 6 of the kids. Now, you might ask me, what did the kids think about that crazy story? What did they think when they met Jenny? Well, would you believe they all had slightly different opinions on it. You know, when they met, we are in 1990. So, you know, people were still at the time maybe a bit more religious than we are today. Sonny was he was actually convinced fairly quickly because Jenny had stated some details. Well, about the geography of the cottage itself, you know, the inside of the house, that was very precise, the description she gave, and about the personalities of all of the kids as well, but also some stuff that no one would have known. For example, she remembered that the family was quite poor, and very poor actually, because daddy was drinking the money away. She remembered that they used to go poaching, so they would illegally get some animals when they were, you know, it's not the type of stuff you tell people, you know, only the family knew about that. They actually used to go and steal some carrots or cabbages from the nearby fields. And that's the type of details that she remembered and Sonny did. Somewhere down that side, there used to be a butcher as well. When Jenny came down in the late 80s, she found the same butcher that she remembered. And so yeah, it's those type of little details that convinced Sonny. Most of the kids now came to the conclusion that it was indeed their mother. Whether they are all agreeing on reincarnation, that's not too sure. For example, Phyllis, she saw a priest, and the priest told her that it might be indeed the spirit of her mother talking through Jenny. So why not? You know, you can make out whatever you want out of the information you have. So Jenny didn't try to push into convincing them that she was definitely their mother coming back. But most of them, and there are some interviews of them, you know, if you want to go on YouTube and watch some old documentaries from the 90s, you can see some interviews of the kids. Actually, there's a movie as well. If you want, I'll post the movie in my Facebook group. Or actually, I can post it in the description of this video. The movie is from the year 2000. It is, well, it's not exactly as the story happened. In the movie, the lady is an American. Instead of being in the Midlands, she's being played by Jane Seymour. There are a few details that are different in the movie. In the movie, not only she's American, but the memories actually started when she was an adult. When in reality, we know that Jenny had those memories from day one almost. And in the movie, there's when she comes to Malahide, she's very distracted. She has a little car accident and stuff. That's not true. That never happened. But you know, it's a movie, so they have to make it more interesting. Anyway, I'll post it in the description if you wanted to watch the movie. The spirit of the experience is quite similar, but it's very Americanized and stuff. Anyway, we're going up this way to go and see the church. It's actually the Protestant church. So you'd think, why would Jenny had such a vivid memory of this church when she was not going to this one? She was going to the Catholic one. Well, Jenny did not know until Phyllis told her that her auntie, so Mary's sister, used to live up that road up there. So Mary would have come up this road very, very regularly to go and visit her sister. So that's probably why she remembered the church so well. Actually, you know what? She even remembered a little shortcut behind the church to go straight towards the castle and then towards Sword Road. And when she first came here in the 80s, she was a bit disappointed because she couldn't find the shortcut. But much later on, when she met Phyllis, her daughter, Phyllis told her that there used to be a shortcut, but it was built upon. Yes, thank you, Tish. It's called Yesterday's Children, same as the book. I've read the book myself. It's called Yesterday's Children. Right, let's go up to the church. I might have to cross over to give you a better overview. Let's see. So this is the Protestant church. It was already there at the time of Mary Sutton. Apologies if I'm huffing and puffing, but we're going uphill. So that's the church. So Mary had, Jenny, although they might be the same person anyway, but Jenny had some memories of that church from a young age. But it is through a regression hypnosis session that she got some very, thanks Mr. Manson, some very vivid image. And I'll show you the drawing. I might have to cross over to get you, let's see. Yeah, I'll cross over so you'll get a better overview. Bear with me. Right. Yep. So this is the church. Let me show you the illustration she had drawn. I mean, it's quite accurate if you ask me. Even the notice board is there, you know, and it's potentially not the most popular or conventional shape for a church. So, well, I think it's very accurate. But tell me what you think. And we'll walk straight back down so we can have a little bit of a sunset by the sea. So, yeah, Jenny, she's still alive. She must be maybe 72 now. There are tons of interviews of her and podcasts and everything. And not only her, but in the 90s, everyone was interviewed. Her mum, her son. That must have been interesting for the actual kids, you know, the actual kids in this life. When their mother was, of course she would take care of them, you know, but she was also fascinated and preoccupied by those other kids she had left behind 60 years earlier in a different life. There might have been a bit of jealousy, really. And of course then her kids were able to meet their, I don't know how you could call them, their inter-life siblings. I don't know how you would call it, but it's probably a very weird situation to be confronted to someone you've been or you've known in another life. Apparently it happens a lot. I mean, according to some people, there's you know, the sleeping prophet, Edgar Cayce. He was a psychic 100 years ago. He's convinced that we actually choose our family, our enemies, our loved ones before to reincarnate. And I mean, it's a bit far-fetched, but oops. hold on, there's a car coming through. It's a bit far-fetched, but you actually believe that, for example, the people that give you some crap in this life, the people that are horrible, you know, maybe your uncle that mistreat you or whatever it might be, that they're actually the souls that love you the most, that they've agreed with their soul contract to be the nasty one in your life this time for your own growth, for what you've got to live, what you've got to learn. I mean, it's interesting. I don't know whether I would go that far, but it's interesting. And of course, there are many different cases of reincarnation, and some of them are very, very well documented as well. Thank you. If you are into it, you can read all the readings from Professor Ian Stevenson. Well, the late Professor Ian Stevenson. He's got a replacement now. He's got another doctor in Virginia that took over his work and that's still studying. I think it's Jim Tucker, the new one. But they have documented a lot of cases of kids, mainly kids, because usually after the age of 7, the kids start to forget their past life memories. And I know sometimes when you go around the internet, you find some stories that are a bit bonkers, you know, and it kind of puts you off, listening to any other stories. But there are some of them that I personally believe in. There's a Swedish lady called Barbro. She believed she was Anne Frank. I know when we're talking about famous people, it seems a bit bonkers, but when you listen to her interviews, and they are from the 60s, you know, it's before the internet. It's actually before, I think it's before that the diaries were translated in many languages. Anne Frank's diaries, for example. But when you listen to what she has to say, you're like, actually, maybe. But of course, when it comes to famous people, there are a lot of cases. For example, you have right now in Australia, you have both a little girl and a little boy that believe they were once Lady Diana. I have to confess, I tend to believe the little girl, because the little boy, he was just a little boy. He was the son of a journalist, and one day he saw a postcard of Diana and he was like, oh, that's me when I was a princess. But the little girl, the story is a little bit more compelling. But yeah, when it comes to famous people, I can understand why people are a bit more skeptical, you know. But in the case of Mary Sutton, she was an unknown, and it actually took years and years of work from Jenny to find the family and stuff. And I honestly don't see why she would make that up, you know. I mean, you might say, yeah, to sell a few books, but surely I'm not sure how much money she would have made with the books. You know, that would be years of struggling for the truth, for nothing really. And also, a lot of people. Her mother was interviewed, and she witnessed everything. Her husband, her kids. I mean, you know, I don't know whether you would find that's a lovely little shop here. You'd find that many people that will be willing to agree with you and to be on camera and to be interviewed on all that if you were making it up.
Yeah.
Now, you might say it's some kind of unconscious approval bias or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, maybe. For me, the most compelling detail, and that's actually what convinced the little Sonny, it's the poaching. She clearly remembered going to there's actually a scene in the movie that's quite well done. She remembered that they would go and put some snares, you know, some stuff to catch rabbits and hares on the local land, and Sonny remembered as well. And in the movie, that's obviously exaggerated, but in the movie, Sonny wants nothing to do with her. He doesn't understand, and then she says to him, I remember you let the rabbit go because there was a little rabbit that was caught in the trap, and Sonny didn't have although they were starving, they were hungry, Sonny didn't have the courage to kill him, and he let him go. And in the movie, that's what convinced Sonny. But the very fact that the siblings were able to be convinced, there must be something there. And also, even if everything was a dream, she managed to bring the siblings back together. She managed to find them all. Well, all the ones that were still alive, because Mary, for example, she had sadly died before Jenny was born anyway. Mary, the oldest teenager. But if anything, even if it was all untrue, she's brought back the sibling together in their late 70s. So that alone is an accomplishment. Now let's cross over. The traffic lights are very long in this country, at least the pedestrian ones. Sometimes I feel like I'm waiting forever. There we go. Now let's go and take a look at the sea. I'll show you the spot where the jetty would have been. It's probably a more modern jetty today, but that's where there used to be a jetty where Mary would have been waiting for Sonny to come back from the Gulf on the other side. And Malahide is very pretty, but very expensive as well. I took a look at the estate agent down the road earlier. Very expensive. It's almost like the French Riviera. And it's nice, but it's not Saint-Tropez, So I think it's probably quite posh. But that's probably a nice place to live. Imagine having one of those homes straight ahead. You've got the sea view and everything. You can be in Dublin city centre in an hour if you have to commute to work. So it's probably quite a nice place to live. Fascinating story. Yes, I think so myself, Tish. There are a lot of stories on the internet of kids' life, but it's really rare when they still remember them as an adult. But because of the trauma of leaving those kids, I didn't even tell you, but she was able to locate the hospital as well. She went down to the Rotunda Hospital in Dublin, and she went to visit the room. And she was a bit disappointed because there were 2 windows in the room, and she was like, that cannot be. Mine had only 1 window. But then she put herself on the position on the bed, and actually from the bed you could see only 1. And she remembered the long elongated windows and everything. So she was able to find the room in which she died, would you believe? That's mad. She was also able to trace some other past life. She remembered being killed by a truck as a little boy in, I want to say Bedford, somewhere around London, and another life in Japan. And apparently she was able to find the location in Japan as well. So it's not only this life, but this life is the one she really felt a deep, strong need to trace and to sort out. And we can see why. It was probably just to check that the kids were okay and to bring the kids back together. Now, there's a little jetty there, and there's another one here, but those are probably more modern jetties. You see, there's another one just there. Oh, thanks ever so much, Diane. That's very much appreciated. That's probably why you need to have more than 1 life in Ireland. Yes, probably, because if you're not patient, you just go. Anyway, look at that piece of land there. It's so flat. There's not a single tree. It looks a bit like Shetland. Well, I've never been to Shetland, but that's how I imagine it. No trees whatsoever because it's too windy. So that's where the golf. Well, there are quite a lot of golf courses in Ireland, but that's where the golf would have been, where the little Sonny worked. The little Sonny is the only one that was not given to an orphanage because he was a bit older. He actually stayed with his dad, and eventually the dad was, well, the kids were taken away anyway. The dad kind of left his entire family. But Sonny is the one that remembers a bit more than his siblings, really. Let me show you the hotel. There's a hotel down that way where Mary would have, not Mary, Jenny would have stayed. When Jenny was finally able to afford to come here for a weekend, I think she stayed in that building there. That's the Grand Hotel. And that's when she was able to come and walk down the street, so she would have known. That's probably a very weird feeling, but I guess it's not so different, you know, like when you go back to wherever you grew up, you know, if you've not been there for 20 years, you know, new buildings are around and stuff, but the layout of the street is the same, you know. So it's probably quite similar in a way. Anyway, that's gonna be the end of the tour. Let me know in the chat if you have any questions before we go. I'll flip this camera around. Thank you for coming today. It's the last one of my tours in Ireland. I'm going straight back to the airport from here. We're quite close to the airport. I just need to jump on a bus, and I'll see you in London next week. And if you drop me a little tip on buy me a coffee or PayPal, it's very, very much appreciated as well. I cannot thank you live because I don't see them live. I'll see them in my emails, but that's very, very much appreciated. You loved hearing about Jenny? Cool. That's what I like to hear. Remember, I do apologize about changing the timing for today, but you know, I think it was a good thing overall, because if we'd been here in 45 minutes, it would have been way too dark to see the view or anything anyway, and I don't think we would have been able to see the castle. So I think it was a good thing overall. But apologies to any of you that missed the beginning because of that. And yeah, the tour next week, it's on the Wednesday. I'm gonna move it to the Thursday. I apologize, I've messed up my diary. I'm going to bingo and my friend has already bought the tickets, so I've just messed up the date. So it's gonna be on the 4th instead of the 3rd. And after that, it's gonna be time to do some more scheduling. We need to go back to Covent Garden because there are, of course, some beautiful Christmas lights in Covent Garden, and of course, we need to do the Christmas tour. We might need to go back down to Fleet Street as well, because there are a lot of Snoopies. There's a little Snoopy trail in the city, so we can probably see a few Snoopies if we go back down to Fleet Street. So I'll be doing some scheduling when I get home. Anyway, thank you guys for coming today. If any of you was completely new to me, if you've made it that far into the video, you might want to consider subscribing. It's the best way to make sure you don't miss the live. This way you can hit the little bell and get a notification when I go live. And of course, the decorations at Fortnum's on Mason, of course, yes. And yes, happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Hope you have a great one. And thanks for coming today. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Yes, we've got until the 19th for Snoopy, so we still have a bit of time. Although they're quite spread apart, so I don't think it would. We wouldn't see all of them, but we could see a few. Anyway, thank you guys. See you soon. Bye bye.